All right, let's get into it. Today we're doing a full pre-flight inspection on Palantir stock. You can almost picture it, right? It's sitting there at the end of the runway, engines are humming, and we're here to figure out what its next move is going to be.
So, this is the big question on everyone's mind. With the stock so incredibly close to its peak, is it about to finally get airborne and soar to new heights? Or are we seeing some warning signs, a potential pullback? Let's dig in.
So when we say close, just how close are we talking? Well, the stock is trading at a pretty remarkable 97.73% of its 52-week high. I mean, think about that. It's almost at its absolute peak performance for the entire year, which makes this pre-flight check that much more important.
Okay, first things first. Are we ready for takeoff? In this first part, we're just going to get our baseline reading. We need to pinpoint the plane's exact position on the tarmac before we even think about hitting the throttle.
As of right now, Palantir is sitting at $247. So, going with our analogy, this is like a high-performance jet. It's fully fueled and it's positioned perfectly at the very end of the runway, just waiting for its next big move.
Now for our next check. All systems go. These are all the bullish indicators. The bright green lights flashing on the pilot's dashboard telling us that everything looks absolutely perfect for takeoff.
So, what we're looking at here are the moving averages. These basically smooth out the price data so we can see the real trend. And notice how the shorter-term averages, like the 5-day and 10-day, are higher than the longer 20-day average. What that means in our jet analogy is that its recent acceleration is way faster than its average cruising speed. That is a clear, powerful signal of positive momentum.
And we see even more of that momentum right here with the MACD histogram. It's just a tool that measures the strength of a price trend. And a positive reading of 1.67, that's another huge green light. It tells us the forward thrust isn't just there, it's actually getting stronger.
And look, it's not just one or two gauges. We've got a whole dashboard of green lights here. Other key indicators are also flashing high, suggesting this rally really has some staying power. You throw in a positive price trend and a price that's way above its recent average, and you get a picture where pretty much all systems are pointing up, up, up.
But a good pilot knows you never, ever ignore the small warnings. And that brings us to our third section, the caution indicators. Think of these as the subtle yellow lights that have just started to blink on the dashboard. They're the ones we have to investigate before we can get clearance for takeoff.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. It's like a tale of two trends. On one hand, the price trend is, without a doubt, going up. It's climbing. But the volume trend, the data that shows us who is buying and selling and how committed they are, well, that's giving us some mixed signals.
This is what analysts call a divergence. It's what happens when the price is going up, but the volume behind that move is a little questionable. Let me put it this way. One indicator, the on-balance volume, or OBV, it's like tracking the total flight bookings over time, and that's going up. But another indicator, the accumulation/distribution oscillator, is kind of hinting that some quiet selling has been happening. It's like a few first-class passengers are quietly canceling their tickets.
And I mean, you can see the sheer scale of this disconnect right here. The long-term accumulation, that OBV, is massive, a whopping 4.48 billion. But the 80SC, which looks at more recent buying and selling pressure, is just a tiny fraction of that and suggests there's actually been some selling, some distribution happening during this price rise. It's a subtle warning for sure, but an important one.
This brings us to the flight planner's official assessment, the risk/reward ratio. Now, a reading of 0.119 is pretty low. What it's basically telling us is that from this specific altitude, the analysis suggests the potential turbulence on the downside is currently greater than the clear skies on the upside, and that's a pretty significant note of caution.
Okay, so we've got our green lights and our yellow lights. Now we need to map the immediate airspace. That brings us to Section 4, Key Flight Levels. These are the critical altitudes, the support and resistance levels that are going to define the stock's very next move.
This chart lays out that immediate airspace perfectly. We have a floor or a support level right below us at 197.53, and then we have a ceiling or resistance just above us at 203.79. The stock is currently flying in this really, really tight corridor.
So, with all of our checks complete, where could this flight actually go?
Well, that brings us to our final section, 3 possible futures. We're going to plot the potential flight plans based on all this data we've just looked at. So based on the analysis, there are 3 main ways this could go. First up, the bullish breakout. The jet just punches right through that 203.79 ceiling and makes a run for its 52-week high. Second, the bearish pullback. It tries to break that ceiling, fails, and then turns around and heads down toward the floor at 197.53, with the risk of dropping even further. And then there's the third option, sideways consolidation. It basically just enters a holding pattern, flying between that floor and ceiling while the market tries to make up its mind.
So what's the final word from the flight tower? Well, the analyst's official conclusion is this. The stock remains in a strong uptrend with potential for further gains toward its yearly high. So, despite those cautionary yellow lights, the overall technical picture is still seen as pretty positive.
And that leaves us right here. Our pre-flight check shows us a powerful engine, incredible momentum, but it also shows a few of those little cautionary signals blinking on the dashboard. So, the real question for any investor watching this is pretty simple. Which signal do you trust more?